Hey, listen, you got a minute?
No, I'm
I want to
supposed to be
show
on
you
duty.
something down the hall. After you see this guy, you'll never want to come back in here again. Man, this guy's burned so bad, he's cooked. A fucking Big Mac. Overdone. You know what I mean? It's a miracle he's still alive. Was me, I prefer to be dead. No way I'd want to be like this freak. He's a monster, man. I've been working here 10 years, and I'm telling you, I ain't never seen anything like this.
I don't know. Maybe the kids are just pulling a prank.
It's Friday. Welcome back to VHS Reanimated. I'm Creepy Gil, and I'm here each week to recommend an underrated horror film for you to dig up and breathe some life back into. Have you seen The Burning? 1980s summer camp slasher starring my favorite urban legend Cropsey? This movie kicks off with a bunch of horrible children. Horrible. Doing this prank. Well, I don't even know how you call that a prank. Where I come from, it's attempted murder. But basically, there's a young Cropsey who's a groundskeeper at this camp. All the little horrible children want to pull a prank on Cropsey, so they light this skull on fire and throw it into his bed when he's sleeping. I don't know what summer camp that is where that's considered a prank, but basically Cropsey gets set on fire and runs for his life out into the woods. P.S. This is an awesome full-bodied burn. Hats off to the stunt man that risked his life for this shot that probably nobody has seen because this movie's not that popular, although it deserves a lot more credit than it gets. So then we jump, 5 years later, new batch of kids at the camp. They're equally as, horrible as the last bunch. These kids are always just flirting with each other. The guys are overly aggressive with the women or the girls. The girls act like they don't like it, but secretly they all talk like they love it.
Sometimes he really scares me. It's true. It's got so I told the supervisor I didn't want to go on the overnight.
Well, you're kidding. What did he say?
He said if things got too heavy, I could come back to camp.
Karen, I think that if you feel that badly about Eddie, you should just tell him you're not interested.
I can't. See, sometimes I really like him.
I don't know who came up with this idea for a movie where you can just be a guy and throw yourself at girls and grab them and touch them and sneak in on them as much as you want, and there's going to be no consequences. Playing opposite Cropsey in this summer camp slasher epic is someone you'd least suspect. A very young, full, luscious head of hair version of George Costanza. It's really weird to watch because every part of you is just like, this is one of those optical illusions where it looks right, but something about it just isn't right. The whole time you're just distracted by this black, thick mess on the top of his head. He goes swimming, he plays baseball, and I don't know, it makes me really uncomfortable. Almost as uncomfortable as Cropsey and his horrible burns is this lush, confident George Costanza.
Man, what the hell are we supposed to be looking for anyway?
Your mother.
Woo. Hey guys, here's a piece of wood.
I still don't understand how Todd expects us to build a raft with all this stuff. Hey, Dave, you know, you've never failed us. How about a big speedboat with a Merc engine on the back, huh?
Oh, why, certainly.
We're treated at one point to this very stereotypical everyone around the campfire ghost story scene where one of the lead counselors tells a story which turns out to be the backstory of Cropsey. You know, he goes through the whole thing about the burning, and now he's covered in burns, and he's gone back to return and attack the camp. And then someone, just as Cropsey, jumps out and scares all the little kids without them realizing that the actual Cropsey is watching from a distance. And this scene hits home to me because I went to summer camp as a little kid, and basically the same thing happened where I was. So the counselors take us up on this nature walk, like a hike. Pretty much anytime you go walking that's not in a city, it's called hiking. As soon as you change from pavement to dirt, you're officially hiking now. So we went on a hike up the mountains, and we stopped in this abandoned barn, and we all sit down in a circle, and the counselor tells a story about Cropsey, this hermit that used to work at the camp, and then he got fired, but now he lives in the woods nearby, and sometimes at night you can hear him, and he has been known to come down the hill to the kids' cabins and scare them. The counselor's going on and on about this, and I'm being like 11 years old and pretty dumb. I'm still not that swift, and I couldn't get past this word hermit. I had never heard that before. I'm incredibly ADD and distracted, so I'm like, he's like a crab person or something? Like, what is a hermit? And in my moronic daydream of what a hermit is, I start to hear this like chainsaw, and the chainsaw is getting closer and closer and closer. And then I start to notice that everyone else in the group sees the chainsaw or hears the chainsaw, and they don't know. And then bam, the door breaks open, and in runs a guy with a bag on his head, swinging this chainsaw around, screaming. Horrible, horrible idea to run into a room full of children with a bag on your head and a real chainsaw swinging it around. But, you know, that's summer camp. Earlier that day, I should mention, me and my friends were supposed to go to archery class or archery activity. I don't know what you call it. But either way, we looked at the day's schedule and saw that a big chunk of it was spent playing archery, and we thought that was a terrible idea. So we skipped it and just hung out in our cabins all day instead. But then the counselors found out, and they got really mad at us. So we were on like double secret probation.
One more stunt like that and you're on your way home. Got it?
That goes for you, too.
And then I'm only saying that because when we got back to our cabin that night to go to sleep, we couldn't sleep because there was this like siren, like this, like it sounded like a song or like somebody like moaning or crying in the night, and it was incredibly scary. We're trying to rationalize it, saying like, oh, this is the counselors trying to get back at us by planting a tape recorder or something outside the cabin, and they're trying to scare us because we were being such horrible, crappy little kids. But there's no way you can go to sleep. It was way too scary. So we all took a cabin vote, and we decided that Brian had to go outside and go look for whatever the source of this noise was. 7 beats 1. Brian's sorry. But, you know, Brian was a little chicken and he didn't want to go outside. He started crying and whining. So we forced him outside, shut the door behind him, barricaded the door, and calmly told him that he could not come back inside until he found out whatever that noise was. I guess thinking back at, you know, my life as a youngster, skipping archery activity day, getting in trouble by the counselors, sacrificing Brian to the night, teaming up and not letting him back in, I act a lot like the kids in this movie that I find so horrible. Maybe that's just a lesson or time in your life you all go through where summer camp just brings out that Lord of the Flies aspect in all of us. Long story short, we never found out what the sound was, and I don't remember if Brian ever came back. The last third of this movie follows a very traditional slasher formula. Even though this was one of the original slashers, it's still exactly what you're going to expect. One by one, people start going missing, and nobody really notices that people are missing for a bit, and then when they do, they don't know what's going on, but then they find all the bodies at once and they freak out. Builds to like a showdown in a mine. I can't really explain the mine, it's just, okay, we're in a mine now. Cropsey versus the remaining counselors in this mine. Showdown to the death. Garden shears versus youth. My favorite scene in The Burning, without a doubt, is the Raft Massacre scene. A lot of people that haven't seen this movie are aware of this particular scene. It's really famous for its gore and kills, especially in 1982 when this movie came out. If you haven't seen this movie, it's worth watching just for the Raft Massacre scene. It's like 30 seconds of build up, and then blam, there's Cropsey with his garden shears and he attacks everybody on the boat in really graphic, broad daylight fashion. It's wonderful, just wonderful. So that's Cropsey and The Burning, one of my favorite slasher films, especially summer camp slasher films. There's quite a few of those. I'll definitely be trying to cover as many of them as I can with this series. We'll get to Friday the 13th and Sleepaway Camp later on, but check out The Burning. If you've already seen The Burning, comment below with your favorite scenes. Mine again has to be Raft Massacre, but if you have a part of the movie that you like more than Raft Massacre, let's hear about it. So until next week, this is VHS Reanimated. I'll be back next Friday with another classic horror recommendation. I'm Creepy Gil, and remember, rewind or die.